Good morning, everyone. Hi, I'm Stuart Wyse. I head up the Customer Centre, the Innovation Showcases, and also the Hothouse team that's based out of Adastral Park. What we look to do here is to sort of get customers excited about innovation, and hopefully I'm going to take you through that a little bit today. You can see we've got a few people joining us today, mainly from the southeast from the looks of it. And what I'd like you to do is to sort of welcome you to the Skills for Tomorrow session today. And I'm also going to introduce Carenza Jennings, who's the sponsor for the Skills for Tomorrow program and giving you these free sessions. So if we can play Carenza's video.
Hello and welcome to BT Skills for Tomorrow. I'm Carenza Jennings. I'm BT's Digital Impact Director. I'm really thrilled to welcome you here today. So over lockdown, we've been doing our best to try to help you with the support, tips, guidance and help that we feel that would really benefit you as we move to that very strange environment. Now, obviously, we're now beginning to ease out of lockdown. There's still a huge amount of uncertainty, but we still feel there's a huge role we can play helping support you and all the various small businesses across the whole of the UK as you grapple with the new challenges that the next few months will bring. So working together with Google Digital Garage, with Cisco, with Small Business Britain, and with Fresh Business Thinking, we're really proud to bring you this wonderful webinar series. We really hope you're going to learn loads of really interesting things. If you would like to share what you've learned, please do, hashtag BT Skills for Tomorrow. We'd be thrilled if you shared that on social media because we really want as many people as possible to benefit from this webinar series. Just tune in for the one that you want or tune in the future. We've got loads of topics coming up and we really hope that you enjoy it. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to our trainer, our special expert. Thank you very much for joining us.
Okay, so great to hear from Carenza. And as I said, what I'm going to do now is to take you through a little bit of the things that we do within BT in terms of driving innovation. I'll take you through a little bit about how we're structured, some of our history of innovation, what we do in terms of our research capabilities to try and identify new topics and new things that we want to focus on. And then I'll start talking to you a little bit more detail about how we look to drive innovation into BT as an organisation. And then we'll focus on a particular topic which we've used for the last sort of 15 or 16 years to help us to accelerate a number of our delivery programs. So this is where I'm normally based. As you can see on the video, I'm not here at the moment. I'm actually, like a lot of people, working from home. But typically, I'm based at Adastral Park, which is BT's research and development headquarters. BT used to have a big research centre up at Dollis Hill in central London, but in the late 1960s, we started to do a lot of research into radio technologies, and we needed somewhere which was flat and with lots of space. Central London, not particularly great for that, but rural Suffolk, for those of you who know it, is known for being very, very flat. So BT moved into Adastral Park in the late 1960s on what used to be RAF Martlesham. So it used to be a base where the likes of Douglas Bader flew out during the war. Even before BT came on site, there was a lot of innovation taking place. The RAF were looking into things like radar technologies, but BT came here late 1960s. First building on site was the one you can see in the top right-hand corner, which has got the two towers either side of it, opened by the Queen in 1975. And then over the last 50 years, it's grown up to what you can see today. And I'll take you through a little bit more about that when we talk about some of the other things that we are going to go through today. But before we go into a little bit more detail about where we are now from an innovation perspective, we always like to look at our history of innovation. And we're going to go back to 1837 and all the way back in 1837 when these two gentlemen, Charles Wheatstone and William Fothergill Cooke, got together. So they were colleagues of Michael Faraday, researching electromagnetism. And on the 12th of June, 1837, they filed a patent. You can see that the patent there, which was for the electric telegraph. And then about a year later, they built that electric telegraph, which you can go and see in the Science Museum in central London. And that's effectively the foundation of telecommunications as we know it. Before Wheatstone and Cooke invented the electric telegraph, if you wanted to communicate with anyone over distance, you got on a horse. If you wanted to sort of go across the whole of the UK, time wasn't synchronized because there was no way of communicating over distance, so you couldn't synchronize time across the whole of the UK. So Wheatstone and Cook identified a need to be able to communicate over distance, their purpose. They did some cool science to look at how they could actually sort of build it, and then some practical engineering to build the electric telegraph. And that effectively is the foundation of telecommunications, and still today what we look at from a research perspective. So all the things that we do from research and innovation is around driving that triangle of purpose, cool science, and cool engineering. Over the years, we've seen lots of innovation taking place throughout BT as a company. If you go back to 1846, the Electric Telegraph Company was founded by Wheatstone and Cook 9 years after they developed the patent for electric telegraph. BT's direct ancestor, we trace our roots right the way back to that foundation of telecommunications. If you come forward a few years, back up to the 1940s, Colossus, Tommy Flowers, was a post office engineer working in the Dollis Hill Research Centre. He was seconded to go to Bletchley Park to work with the likes of Alan Turing on breaking the German encryption codes. And he built the world's first programmable computer. So not IBM or any of the other sort of big American companies. It was actually built by a post office engineer and used to crack the German Lorenz cipher. Shaved about 18 months or 2 years off the war effort. When Tommy had finished up at Bletchley Park, he came back into BT at Dollis Hill. And in the late 1960s, when we started rolling out digital telephone exchanges, that was on the back of some of the work that Tommy Flowers had actually done developing Colossus. And if we move sort of like a little bit closer to home, 1980s onwards, all of the innovation that you can see here is effectively stuff that's been driven out of the research and innovation that takes place at Adastral Park. So things like single mode fiber. So the backbone of the internet as we know it today carries all of the data transmission across it. Not invented by BT, but the practical application of being able to transmit data at high speed across fiber was something that was pioneered and innovated out of Adastral Park. And then if we come to the last few years, we have a lot of things happening around things like quantum security and quantum keys. And if you listen to the likes of Professor Brian Cox, over the next 10, 15, 20 years, we'll see quantum computers starting to appear, which will allow us to do fantastic things. It will allow us to do lots of multiple processing of programs and applications, and allow us to do things like hopefully find cures for cancer. Great from that perspective. But if you think about it from a security perspective, all of the encryption that we currently have works on the basis of it takes a traditional computer a really long time to crack encryption codes. Once you start to get quantum computers, those could be broken in hours and minutes. So all of our current security that we use to secure data across the network could potentially be broken by quantum computers. So a lot of our research and innovation at the moment is focused on how you can drive different ways of securing data using the power of quantum physics. And then 5G, obviously 5G launched over the last couple of years. EE, part of BT, were the first company to launch it in the UK. And we're starting to see lots more research into different use cases and applications to enable people to use 5G in different ways. So I want to take you a little bit more about Adastral Park now and what we actually do here. So there's around about 4,000 people that are based on site at Adastral Park, a mixture of BT people, Openreach, and there's another 100,000 or another 1,000 people who are based in other companies on site, part of that high-tech cluster. We host lots of people. So one of the things that me and my team are responsible for is to get people excited about our research, about our innovation, and where we see technology changing the way businesses can operate. And we do that with a lot of corporate customers. So we have lots of customers through my team. We host a lot of school children. So on site, we have a space which allows us to host lots of school visits, and we do lots of engagement with children from the age of 7 to get them thinking about technology, thinking about potentially following those STEM subjects as they go through their education, and to see where they could potentially follow through to careers in either BT or one of the other companies that are based on site here. And we also host lots of what we call VIP influencer type people, which range from government officials to university professors, to Princess Anne, who came to visit us last year. And again, what we're looking to do here is to try and get them thinking about where technology is going to change the way that businesses operate, society operates, and to think about what that might have from an implication perspective. The building you can see on the right-hand side there, that's our Network Operations Centre. It's where we manage all of the UK broadband traffic. So if you're connecting into this sort of broadcast today via BT broadband, you'll effectively be managed through that operations centre. You can see some fairly large figures on there in terms of the amount of customers that they host through there. The actual amount of data that they host is slightly out of date. We've seen some more peaks around that. Obviously, with COVID, we've seen a lot more people working from home. But interestingly, that's not actually been the reason we've seen a peak of traffic on our network. What we've actually seen is a peak actually just before Christmas, when we had Amazon Prime broadcasting all of the Premier League football at the same time, live over the internet. Plus, there was also a release of a new Fortnite game, and a lot of people were actually downloading that game at that time. So that was actually when we saw the peak on our network, which is around about 17.5 terabits per second on the network. As I said, with people working at home, we've seen an increase in usage during the day, but typically the peak on the network is around about 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening. So the network has been able to cope with all the additional demand placed on it by people working from home. And part of that is due to the innovation that's done within the operations centre to be able to profile the traffic of when we're expecting people to be using the network, when we've got things like new game releases coming out from the likes of Fortnite, Call of Duty, working closely with those providers, and some very clever innovation to look at how we can push the content that you as a consumer want to access from potentially some of the servers that are based out in the States, if you're downloading Fortnite, to your local exchanges. So how we can actually push the content closer to you and to make sure that you're actually accessing it an easier way and not pushing demand across the core network. So lots of innovation in our operations centre. As well as the operations centre, we also have our government security departments, work closely with all the government security teams. They are growing their presence on site here. And we have a testing integration facility where we test all of the innovations that come from the likes of Cisco, Nokia, Alcatel, all our big providers. When they look to say we've got some new equipment we want to put into our infrastructure, we want to make sure that it's going to go in effectively. We want to make sure that it's not going to have any impacts on our network. So we've got a testing integration facility which allows us to deploy any new kit into it and test it at scale, because it's about the size of Belgium's telephone network. So when we say we test it at scale, we really do test it at scale. And what we're looking to do with Adastral Park is to move away from where we were when we first came onto site. As I say, in the late 1960s, we first moved onto site. For the first 30 odd years, it was just BT on site. About 2006, we started to see some of our suppliers co-locating with us. And then over the last 7 or 8 years, we've seen a lot more companies come onto site. And what we want to try and do is to change the way that the research and innovation headquarters at Adastral Park is perceived, is to not just be a BT site, but to be this national centre for digital and communications innovation. And one of the ways we're doing that is by bringing lots of other companies on site. So I mentioned the 140 odd companies that are on site at Adastral Park as part of the Innovation Martlesham cluster. It's difficult to keep track of because it is growing very, very rapidly. I think on the slide it says 141. I think it might actually now have gone up to 149 over the last week. But what we are looking to do with the cluster is to bring lots of innovative companies into the cluster who work in the ICT sector to see where they can work with other companies that are based on site, be that BT, be that any of the other large companies, the likes of Cisco, Nokia, etc., or maybe even working with some of the smaller companies. And we have an ecosystem in place which allows companies who want to co-locate with a tech cluster, want to actually sort of grow their business in a tech cluster, to be based at Adastral Park and to grow their businesses there. We've got, in terms of the different sort of like options, you can see there's an option there for the accelerator and the incubator, which are for companies in the very, very early stages of formation. And we do quite a bit of support in terms of getting them to think about how their business can grow, giving them access to some of the mentoring network that we have in place. So we have mentors supporting the cluster who can provide advice and guidance around things like patenting, marketing, HR, all sorts of different things that you might need as a growing business. So that the cluster's actually got a range of different support mechanisms in place to actually sort of help the cluster grow. Once you get to a sort of slightly larger office, a larger company, if you want to have a physical presence on site, we've got a number of companies who take advantage of the serviced offices on site, and they can actually sort of base themselves there and grow their businesses on site there. And then the other option we have in terms of companies within the cluster is for them to be part of a business club. And the business club is not necessarily where you have a physical presence at Adastral Park, but you want to be engaged with the cluster. You want to be part of the organization. You want the opportunity to network with other companies. You want to have that access to the mentoring network to help your company grow, and to potentially look and see where you've got the opportunity to work with some of those organizations and see opportunities to sell into either BT or one of the other companies that's based here. I'll pick out one of the examples on there. So you can see, hopefully, next to the Cisco logo, there's a little knight logo for a company called Codrus. So Codrus started back in 2011 as two men who were doing software coding in one of the guy's bedrooms at his house. They came on site to Adastral Park in 2012 and have used the sort of the serviced offices at Adastral. They came into the incubator initially, grown as a business over the last 8 years. They're now about 30 strong, and they do a lot of mobile application development. They work closely with the likes of Google and Apple. They're accredited developers on their platforms. And back in 2017, BT worked really closely with them when Codrus, little small company out of Innovation Martlesham, were providing the software for Ben Ainslie Racing when Ben Ainslie was trying to win the America's Cup yachting race. They were providing the software on the boat, which was giving the engineers in Portsmouth real-time data about how the boat was actually performing. And then BT were providing the network which enabled that data to go in real time to the engineers and enable them to look at how they could access the data, see how the boat was performing, and potentially make it go faster. Obviously, Ben Ainslie didn't win the America's Cup, unfortunately, but I know Codrus are starting to work with him, hopefully, on the next challenge, and to see whether we can provide even more data for the engineers, which will allow us to actually sort of hopefully retain or regain the cup. But Innovation Martlesham, a great opportunity to be co-located with a high-tech cluster. I think we are now the biggest tech cluster in the whole of Europe. And we're growing, as I say, quite rapidly over the last sort of like few years, probably the last 18 months. It's more than doubled in size, and we're looking to get more and more companies who can see the benefits of actually sort of co-locating and being part of the innovation activities that take place out of Adastral Park. Wanted to give you a few facts and figures about our research activities and what we do from an innovation perspective in BT. So currently we're the fourth largest investor in R&D in the UK over the last 10 years. And we've just dropped down on the list. So we used to be third behind the two big pharmaceutical companies, Astra and Glaxo. But just in the last year, on over the last 10-year average, we've just dropped down into fourth place. But we're still third in all of the telco sector. So if you look across all the telecoms companies across the whole of the globe, BT is the third largest investor in the telco sector. And again, we alternate there between second and third. NTT out in the Far East are the biggest investor, and then we tend to alternate between AT&T out in the States and us, who are either second or third in the sort of the sector. But as you can see, we spend a lot of investment into our research and development activities. We have a lot of patents in our portfolio, going right the way back to Wheatstone and Cook and the electric telegraph. And we look to drive lots of innovation and inventions out of our site at Adastral Park. We have around about 100 new inventions that come out from the site every year, which are some of the things that our researchers are innovating on, but also things that we do in conjunction with other organisations and other universities. So you can see there we have direct relationships with about 40 different universities across the whole of the globe. And that's where we're looking to get the best brains in academia, working with the best brains in our organisation so that we can drive all the innovation. In terms of our innovation capabilities, and in terms of how we do our research, we're structured around a number of different core research themes. And you can see the examples of sort of different research themes that are here. So when we're looking at driving innovation in research, we're looking around these particular topics. So if you think of BT, traditionally you'll think of our network, you'll think of our core network, you'll think of our mobile network, you'll think of what we do around those particular areas, and we're looking to see how you can start to change the way that the core network operates, how the access network operates with things like improvement in fiber, how you can start to bring those together. So as you're making a call on your mobile network, if you move into the house and you've got a better Wi-Fi signal, how do you actually sort of access or retain your call on the Wi-Fi network? So a lot of things about how you start to bring together the networks. Internet of Things obviously is a big growth area, and we have a whole practice looking at how you start to make sense of all the data you can collect, how you can start to do things in different ways with all the data that's coming from the Internet of Things. Security and cyber defense, obviously a hot topic for every organization, how you secure your own infrastructure, how you make sure that any services or applications you're providing to customers are secure. And we have in BT around about 3,000 people that work in security across the whole of the organization, and around about 30 or 40 in our research area who are looking at what cybersecurity and security needs to be doing over the next 5 to 10 years to stay ahead of the hackers. BT is a big organization. One of the things we're looking to see is how we can transform ourselves, how we can be more efficient. And our operational transformation research is looking at how you can start to use things like artificial intelligence and machine learning and the ability to be able to transform how we operate, how we organize our field teams more effectively, how we organize our resources more effectively. So a whole range of activities around how we as a business can be more efficient. BT Sport obviously was launched a few years ago, and we've seen a lot of innovation taking place in that area. A lot of it driven by our TV research teams, things like broadcasting in 4K, 8K, immersive content. All those sort of things are things that are being researched out of our labs at the moment to see where we can drive innovation into how you do broadcasting in sport. We obviously have lots of customers, and we are keen to see how we can improve their experience, how they engage with us in different ways, how we can drive innovation in terms of how we provide them with information and allow them different channels to actually sort of talk to us. Artificial intelligence, obviously, again, a very hot topic for lots of people, how you can start to make sense of all the data you're capturing, how you can start to then make decisions on some of that information. And we have a whole research area looking at how you can do things with big data and analytics and artificial intelligence. I've mentioned already some of the things we do in terms of education and skills, with school children from the age of 7, them getting to think about careers in STEM subjects and thinking about opportunities to potentially then work in one of the companies that's based at Adastral Park. And what I'm going to do now is to go into a little bit more detail about our innovation and how we actually sort of drive innovation as an organisation. So our approach to innovation is very much around thinking both internal and external. So it's very much around a push and pull model. We look to find innovation across the globe. So we look for innovative companies that we can work with, innovative organizations that we can work with, and we look to see where we can challenge our businesses to drive that innovation into our organization and work differently. But also we reach out into those organizations and see what customers are asking for. What are customers saying are their particular challenges? What are the issues that they're facing as businesses? And how can we then find particular solutions which will enable us to change the model for how they actually work? And we see this very much as an ability to be able to challenge what they do, to provoke what they're actually doing in terms of how their businesses are organized, and to see where we can actually sort of get them to change the way that they operate. All of that is around finding innovation across the globe, finding it in the best places we can, and focusing on it being delivered for our customers. So again, coming back to that analogy with Wheatstone and cookies about having that purpose in terms of why you're looking to innovate, making sure you've got a clear motive that you actually want to achieve your outcomes against. Once we've found that cool innovation, it's important to do things very rapidly with it. So we like to iterate, go through lots of different trials and tests to make sure that it's really going to deliver what we do, and then look to see how we can actually downstream it into our organization as quickly as we can. So we'll go into each of those in a little bit more detail, and I'll explain a little bit about how we sort of are structured to drive innovation into our organization. And then we'll focus on one of those particular models and understand how that actually sort of helps us to accelerate the delivery of what we do. So looking at this piece here, we have a whole organization which allows us to scout across the organization, both internally within BT, externally to the hotbeds of innovation in Silicon Valley and Israel, into the UK startup communities through the organizations that are based around the UK, through our innovation and Martlesham cluster that we have on site here, and to look to see what's happening in the industry. What are the likes of Facebook, Google, Amazon, Netflix? What are they doing in terms of driving innovation? What are other organizations in the telco sector doing in terms of driving innovation? And where can we see innovation which will allow us to potentially change the model of how we do things in BT? The Applied Research Accelerator is very much around, once you've found that innovation, how you start to move it forward. What can you do in terms of bringing it to life? How can you build some sort of demonstrator which allows you to explain it more clearly? How do you get some early feedback around it in terms of prototyping it? And then how do you actually get some customer focus around it? Once you've identified what's actually going to go forward, how do you then build a model around it to prove it's going to be successful? So how do you actually sort of prove that you can scale up and do things across the whole of your organization? And then the two teams that I run focus on how we actually bring it to life to customers. So how we actually showcase all the innovation that we do and get customers excited about it, and how we then downstream it rapidly through what we call our Hothouse process. So I wanted to just sort of show you our showcases. So one of the things that we do in terms of showcasing innovation is to try and bring it to life in what we call situational environments. So at Adastral Park, I have a number of different environments, and you can see them sort of pictured here, which allows us to actually showcase innovation that we've found from different companies around the globe. We can bring customers into these environments, show them what it is that they're actually sort of seeing in an environment they can relate to, and they can then see how that might actually enable their business to do things in different ways. So as you can see, I have a house, which is a representation of a house. I have a manufacturing line, which talks about what we can do in the industry space. I have a banking environment. I have a retail environment. I have a mobility space. I have a healthcare environment. I have an area where we talk about what we can do with OpenReach and a lot of the OpenReach infrastructure. And then we have one which focuses more around security. And in each of these sort of environments, we have innovative demos and solutions that we found from both our researchers, so that the people who are based with us at Adastral Park, from those startup companies we found around the globe, and also from the innovation marketers and companies that are based on site with us. And we have around about 240 different demos that are in these showcases, which I show to all of the corporate customers that come through, all of the VIPs that come through. And as I say, we put that into an environment that customers can relate to and get them thinking about how it could actually sort of change the way that they work. So if you're looking in the connected industry showcase, we've got a number of demos that we've talked there about things like headset technology. So how can headsets such as Oculus Rift, the Microsoft HoloLens, all the different solutions that are coming out now, how does that enable engineers to be able to do things in different ways? And not just engineers in a field environment, but how can you then translate that into other industries as well? But by putting it into that environment where you can see it working in a particular area, that helps customers to relate to it, to see where innovation can then be transported across to their industry, and to see where we can actually enable them to look at potentially driving innovation into their organization. And we do that with lots of customers. So I mentioned that one of the roles of my team is to get customers to come and see us. We host around about 250 visits for customers and VIPs across the course of the year. I host about another 150 odd people in BT. So one of the other challenges is to make sure that everyone in BT is excited about the things that we're doing, all the innovation that we're driving into BT and also for our customers. So it's also about getting them to think about where innovation can change the way that they're doing things and to get them thinking about where they can use innovation in their organization. So we host lots of customers through the organization. But what I wanted to do now was to focus a little bit more on one of our particular techniques that we've used since 2004 to help us to drive innovation through our organization, something that we've actually called Hothouses. And if you're familiar with hackathons and the idea of multiple people getting together in an environment, being able to quickly co-create activities and deliver something really quickly, it's something that we've turned and used in a business model to enable businesses to be able to do it differently. So what we have is an environment. I've got two locations where I can actually hold Hothouses, one at our research headquarters at Adastral Park. The other one is the other sort of site we have, which is closer to London, just off the M25 at a place called Brentwood. And both of these facilities allow us to host between 60 and 80 people across a multiple day event, typically 2 or 3 days, and to get them to solve business problems. And the way we do that is by bringing in lots of different people who have different skills and different knowledge and can all add different value into the conversations. We then, throughout the course of the event, have regular feedback and presentations. We bring in a lot of our research experts or indeed external industry experts who can potentially throw in ideas and challenges and get businesses to think about how they can transform the way that they do. We have a pretty good idea of what it is we want to achieve at the end of the event. We don't know how we're going to get there or what we're going to do. And the magic of the Hothouse is actually to enable the people across the course of the 2 or 3 days to really drive through that acceleration. And we see, as I say, anywhere between 3 weeks and 9 months worth of activity delivered across a 3-day Hothouse. So one of the sort of key challenges around having a Hothouse is to get people to commit to do it. And why would you commit 3 days of your time and resource to do it? It's a big commitment out of anyone's time. It's a big commitment out of any business's time. I mentioned, as I said, we hold Hothouses for anywhere between 60 to 80 people as a maximum. And you think that's potentially across a 3-day Hothouse, that's 240 man days of effort that you're giving up. So why would you do it? And these are the reasons why we actually sort of do Hothouses. It's about actually collaborating together and actually getting the right people together in a short space of time to be able to deliver a problem. I mean, it's obviously slightly different in the environment we're in at the moment, where we're not able to meet face to face, but so many projects and programs run on conference calls where people aren't face to face. And it draws out the process quite drastically. So by physically getting people together in a room across a 2 or 3 day period, getting them to talk face to face, collaborate face to face, it gives us all these activities. It allows them to have that ability to see end to end, to discuss an end to end activity and solution. It enables them to get regular feedback. So one of the things that we do is have senior stakeholders in the room over the 3 days with the people who are coming up with the solutions, and the senior stakeholders can say, yes, I think that's a good idea and you should explore it further, or no, that's never going to work. So you get that immediate feedback and the ability to either accelerate what you're working on or to cut it short and not deliver it, which really helps that speed of delivery. The other thing that we see on the back of a Hothouse is that typically when you have 60 or 80 people together in a room across the course of 3 days, when you finish that 3-day Hothouse, you have a huge amount of momentum and shared ownership of that challenge going forward. So it allows you then to come out of that, continue the process that's been built across the 3 days, and to make sure that you've got advocates going into the business who are driving forward the outcomes. And that, as I say, helps us to really deliver much quicker. And we see, as I say, anywhere between 3 weeks and 9 months of activity delivered across the course of those 3 days. One of the key things around hothouses, though, is to make sure that you have the right level of engagement and support behind it. It is a big commitment, and we don't do it without that senior level sponsorship. So within BT, we want one of our managing directors to be able to sign off the fact that we are going to commit this resource to do it. You need to have a clear understanding of what it is you're trying to achieve. You don't want to have an exactly defined route, but you want to know this is our challenge and this is what we need to achieve at the back of it, and this is why we think it's going to be beneficial to us to do it. So that understanding of the market drivers and the benefits of what's actually going to be there, and then a sort of idea of where you want to get to. So what it is that you'll walk away from the end of the hothouse with that will know you've made a success. Is it that in fact you'll have an accelerated program delivery plan? Is it that you'll have some sort of working prototype? Is it that you'll have a clearly defined process which allows you to shave the way that you actually deliver experiences to your customer? And linking into that, one of the key things about actually having the prioritization is to make sure you've got real customers engaged. It's great coming up with solutions, but ultimately we all need to make sure we're focusing on how we improve the service we deliver to our customers. So that ability to bring in our customers, get their immediate feedback and understand where we are helping to solve their challenges is one of the key things we do within our hothouse process. Part of the process around hothouses is to take a long time to plan it. We always say that if you don't put the effort into actually sort of planning it successfully, it's no point actually having that 3-day hothouse. Typically 6 to 8 weeks is what you need to be able to successfully plan a hothouse. Part of that is around making sure you've got the right skills engaged, so you've got the right people there, because a lot of the times if you're looking for people who've got potentially scarce resources, or you're looking at getting your MD to come in and be in the hothouse for 3 days, it takes a bit of time to actually get into their diaries. So 6 weeks is a typical sort of lead time into the process, but also you then need to work out how you're going to do all the sort of activities that are going to make sure it's a success. What are the success factors? What does good look like? What do you need the participants to be prepared before they actually come to the hothouse? How do you sort of like get them up to speed? Can you do some pre-learning, which enables them to be able to be more effective when they come into the hothouse on day one? The more you can do in advance of the hothouse to actually get everyone to the same level of understanding, the better the hothouse will actually be, because you don't then have to spend time in the hothouse itself bringing everyone up to that particular level. When you actually sort of get to the hothouse, typically what we do is to have an understanding of what everyone's understanding is at the moment. So give them that sort of background information, make sure everyone has a picture of where we are, what we're trying to achieve, and how we're going to do it. To bring in that customer's feedback, to actually sort of make sure you've actually got customers who can really do it. And then we do it in teams. So with hothouses, we say typically 60 to 80 people is the maximum we have in a hothouse, and we would break those into teams of around 8 to 12 people. You want a reasonable number in there. 6 is probably the minimum number you need in a team. 8 is probably about the maximum. And the way the teams work is that they effectively compete against each other to come up with the best solution. We have a competitive hothouse with prizes at the end of it for the winning team. And that really does help to drive the motivation of the teams to actually succeed. We see some fantastic outputs on the basis of what the teams have actually been doing. And we have a clear set of judging criteria. So we have some of our senior stakeholders engaged who can give the teams that regular feedback throughout the course of the event, and daily presentations, at least daily, from the teams. So what we want to do is to make sure that the teams are on track. We want the teams to be able to share what it is that they're doing with everyone across the hothouse. And the way we describe the hothouse is collaborative but competitive. So each team effectively is working on their own to be able to come up with the best solution that they can. But we also want to make sure that other teams can steal their best ideas, and that at the end of the 3 days, we come away with the best solution overall. And that's through that regular feedback process, that regular ability to be able to understand where teams are sort of working together, and to effectively come up with a fantastic solution. what we would normally do is say do it with large customers or do it internally within BT. And a couple of really good examples. So if you think back to 2013 when BT won the rights for the Premier League football, we had 11 months from being awarded the rights to the first game of the season. And we had nothing in place to be able to deliver that because obviously we didn't know for definite we were going to win the rights. So in 11 months, we had to work out how we were going to broadcast the games, how we were going to get the data, or so there's a stream from the grounds to the BT tower where all our broadcasts go through, to a BT studio, which we didn't have. So we had to build a studio, work out how we were going to build it, how we were going to man it, how we were going to run it. We had to work out how we were going to market it to our customers, how we were going to sell it to our customers, whether we were going to bundle services together, how we were going to effectively differentiate from a commercial offers that we're offering into the pubs and clubs market, into what we do with consumers. And we ran a number of hothouses. We actually ran 4 hothouses with the BT Sport team to make sure they were ready for that first game of the season, because we were pretty sure the Premier League weren't going to put back the first game just because our project was slightly behind schedule. So we had a hard and fast delivery we had to achieve. And then subsequently, we've also done it with Champions League. So when we won the Champions League football, we went from broadcasting 1 game on a Saturday to having to broadcast 8 games simultaneously. How do you change your model to be able to do that? And we had to go through the hothouse process to be able to understand how we could change that model. And as you can see, we've also done it with some of our customers as well. And Essex Police was a great example. We've actually now run 2 hothouses with Essex Police, looking at how you start to change the way that the police can use technology to change the way that they interact with the public, how they actually sort of enable them to use partners in different ways. And we've had a couple of really successful hothouses with Essex Police, bringing in their partners. So you can see there's some of the partners that we've actually worked with to look to see where we can actually sort of help Essex Police in a different way and to drive innovation through their organisation. And then I wanted to leave you with a slide which talks about our innovation process. And I've just lost the ability to move the clicker forward to the next slide. Let me just see if I can get the next slide to come up, because I wanted to leave you with our innovation process. There we go. So this is effectively summarizing our innovation process, and working from left to right. It's all about getting lots of ideas from lots of different solutions. Whilst we have lots of clever people in BT, in our research department, looking at sort of, the potential future of technology over the next 5-10 years, we recognize there's also lots of other things that you can actually do to drive innovation. So it's about getting ideas from our customers, getting ideas from our customer-facing units of the different parts of BT, such as our global, our consumer, and our enterprise businesses, to look up what's happening in the startup community and where we're seeing innovation from that side of things, what's happening in industry. So I mentioned the likes of what's happening with Google, Netflix, Amazon, and the companies out in Silicon Valley, what's happening in other telco sectors. But it's about all these different idea sources coming together. Once you've actually sort of identified those ideas, how do you start to bring it to life? How do you start to trial it? How do you start to get it in front of our customers? How do we start to do those proofs of concept? And how could you rapidly get feedback about whether this initial idea you've got is going to be successful? So doing those trials and case studies with our customers is key, both internally and externally. Once you've tried it internally, how do you then scale it up? How do you prove that it can grow to a bigger scale? You can then roll it out across your organization. How do you prove it's going to deliver the benefits at scale across the organization? And how you're going to then sort of like get it into each of the different sort of customer facing units. And then finally, how do you launch it? So how do you actually get it into the session where you can actually get it out to everyone that's out there? So that, in summary, is effectively what we look to do from an innovation perspective. It's very much around taking lots of ideas from lots of solutions, trialing it with our customers, trialing it internally, doing it rapidly. You can see at the bottom there, we like to try and do things very quickly because technology is always changing. You don't want to spend 6 months trialing a piece of technology, because guaranteed there'll be something new that comes out in that time scale which will do it quicker, faster, and better. And then how do you launch it quickly into the business? So hopefully that's given you a bit of an insight into what we do from a research perspective in BT, how we continually strive for innovation in our organisation, and through our Hothouse process, how we look to accelerate the delivery of some of those processes. What I'll do now is open it up for any questions. So let's see if we've got any questions coming through. So got a question from Andrew. If I have no idea for an invention, how is it to get to present my idea to someone useful in terms of considering if the idea is worthwhile pursuing it? And if so, how to move it forward with it? It's an interesting idea, because that first stage of being able to move from an idea into something tangible is a real challenge for lots of businesses. I think that the thing to try and do with that is to look for opportunities in innovation communities. So there will be lots of innovation communities spread around the whole UK. I mentioned, obviously, we have the Innovation Martlesham cluster that's based at Adastral Park, and there are links into that where you can start to sort of see opportunities to talk to people about ideas. A lot of the time it's about potentially being able to then pitch that to some investors, and there's lots of companies out there. I was on a session on Wednesday last week where there was a company which was actually getting lots of companies who have ideas to start pitching their ideas to lots of different corporates, to get them thinking about potentially where corporates could potentially help those organizations to grow. Some of those are looking for investment. Some of them have more of a product where they're actually sort of able to develop it and move it forward. But I think with all the things where you have an idea, it's about trying to find within your local area what that startup community is in that area, because there will be one that's fairly local to you, and then to identify how you can engage with those people, and to see where there are potentially investors who might be interested in helping you to develop an idea, to help and provide some funding in there. And there will be a number of different sort of sites where you can potentially look at opportunities to actually grow those things. And another question from Andrew in terms of innovations in telcos or other fields as well. I think one of the sort of things that we often see with BT is that a lot of people see BT as just being in that telco space, just thinking about our broadband network, our telephones, and what we do in terms of our core network. And hopefully, as you saw from a research perspective, in terms of the area we're looking at, so we're looking at security, we're looking at the Internet of Things, we're looking at artificial intelligence, we're looking at augmented reality, virtual reality, all those sort of areas. So I think with the innovation that we're looking at, it's about finding specific use cases. If we can see there's an opportunity to use it in a way that would benefit our customers, or enable us as an organization to be able to use it and to be more efficient in how we use technology and how we provide services to our customers, then there's always opportunities to look at driving innovation and inventions into our organization. And I think that's very much our ethos around the open innovation approach. As I said earlier, it's not just the fact that we have a lot of clever people in our research teams. There are lots of clever people outside of BT as well, and we want to drive the best innovation we can from wherever we find it into our organization. So if you've got ideas which you think potentially could solve a particular challenge, or again, going back to Wheatstone and Cook, enable us to repurpose and do something that we hadn't previously considered, then we're always happy to consider how we can actually use that innovation and do things in a different way. That seems to be on the Q&A at the moment. Any more questions coming through? While we are sort of waiting for the any more questions to come through, I would just sort of remind people that we are looking to sort of see if we can get a feedback from you at the end of the session to see how useful the session has been today. It would be good if you could sort of take the time. It only takes a few minutes just to quickly complete that feedback survey as part of the session for today. But we'll wait and see if there's any. There's a session come up on there. Let's see if there's any more questions come through. Not at the moment. Okay, we'll give it a minute and see if anyone's got anything else. While we are waiting for any more questions to come through, I'd just like to remind people about the session that we're doing tomorrow. We're doing a session tomorrow which is all around health and well-being. It's kicking off at 9:30 tomorrow morning, so if people are interested in healthcare, healthcare is a really fascinating area at the moment. I mean, there's so much interest in that from an innovation perspective. We're seeing lots of technology that's coming into that particular space, and lots of startup companies. So it's a really hot topic at the moment, and lots of innovative ideas coming out of that area. So if you do get the opportunity to join that one tomorrow, I'd thoroughly recommend it. As we don't have any more questions coming through, I'd just like to thank everyone for joining us today. Reach out to us on social media and let us know what your thoughts are around the sessions today using the hashtag skills for tomorrow. And as I say, there's lots more new free webinars coming up we can sign up for on the site skills for tomorrow/workfly. So do keep a lookout for those. As I say, if you could spend a few minutes to complete the poll, that would be really helpful for us, just to sort of help us to gather the data about how successful you think today has been. And with that, what I'd like to do is to thank you all for attending today. Have a good day. Hopefully the weather is easing off for you wherever you are, and look forward to seeing you on one of our future webinars. Thanks very much for attending today.